Good afternoon, everyone. Futures Brizio here, 12:30 p.m. on Thursday, April 30th, 12:30 p.m. New York City time. Hope everybody's had a good morning. And I'm sorry to be getting in here really late. I left the house early this morning. I had an appointment. I just got home about a half an hour ago. So I was able to take a quick peek at things this morning before I left. And needless to say, it wasn't good. So we'll just jump right into that. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Any questions, comments, leave them down below. And I'm going without the hat today, so you get to see my semi-bald head. But anyways, let's get this microphone up here. So we're going to talk about it. And so yesterday in Forex, you remember we had a whole discussion about trading journals. And then I had a discussion around the 4-hour versus the daily time frame for taking these CSI signals. And I also told you I had taken a trade on the US dollar Swiss long and the euro Swedish krona short, I believe. And so overnight, well, actually not really overnight, but sometime during the morning hours, a pre-New York session, the Bank of Japan decided to jump in and do some limited buy-ups of the Japanese yen off the lows. And I don't know why they did that. Maybe it'll come out later. But unfortunately, that caused a very big spike in the Japanese yen. Now, I was not in any yen trades. I wish I was in some yen crosses to the downside because all the yen crosses went way down this morning. Couple hundred pips or something like that. And we'll take a look at just one or two of the pairs, see where they're at now. So that is what caused the yen to suddenly spike higher this morning. And the Swiss franc also followed suit. Now, to my knowledge, there was no Swiss franc news. And so I think it was more just basically following along. So the yen and the Swiss franc are what they consider to be safe haven currencies. And they do sometimes move in sympathy with each other when there's an event that would drive one straight in one direction, kind of out of the gate. And even though they're different countries, they're still considered safe haven currencies. And so I guess that's why the Swiss franc also strengthened, although the yen strengthened more. But unfortunately, with that strengthening, knocked me out of my US dollar Swiss trade. I got stopped out of that. And I also got stopped out of the euro Swedish krona trade. Now, with that one, there was some Eurozone news this morning, so that might have been some of it. And as I also mentioned, the Swedish krona, that those are exotic currency pairs. So there's not a lot of volume in them. So unfortunately, they can really spike. And unfortunately, if it spikes in the wrong way, it's very easy to be taken out of those trades. So I lost it wasn't anything crazy. I lost like $400 and something. And then the US dollar also continued to weaken today. And so I was also in the Australian dollar, US dollar short yesterday, as you recall. That one I closed out manually just before starting this video for a pretty big loss too. Now, I did open a British pound US dollar long this morning, which was kind of going against the Aussie US dollar. That one actually got into a pretty nice profit, kind of offset the loss on the Aussie US dollar that I closed. So not a good day. So looking at our journal spreadsheet that I started yesterday, I did update it. I was hoping to not have to fill in these close date and times so quick since I just opened these trades yesterday. But you can see that I am out of, and I need to fill in the Aussie USD. I just closed that one. So let me just actually, while we're sitting here, I'm going to say noon. It was about a half hour ago, and I got to look up the exact amount here on this Aussie US dollar. And I need to move this one minus 224 because this was off the daily chart. So I need to delete this. And we're just doing this real time, guys. Let's format these cells. And And then we'll copy that formula. You guys get to see a, oh, I don't know what happened to it. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'll go back to it later. I want to hold up the video. Unfortunately, out of those three trades, not good. Between the three of them, we're looking at about $800 in loss. A little bit of that was offset, like I said, with the pound USD trade I took this morning. I didn't really get a chance to really dig into it, but like I said, we did have some uh, Bank of Japan buying up some yen, so that caused the yen and I probably the Swiss franc rally. And then we also had some news out of the GBP. Wasn't anything unexpected. It was just bank rate news. Everything came in as expected. They didn't change their rates. They didn't change. The euro stayed the same, kept their finance rate the same. So everything came in pretty much as expected. So I don't think that really contributed too much to any of the news spikes or anything like that. So, but you can see again. There's the Japanese yen. You can see here's the daily. These are the currency futures, but you can see this big candle here. Now it's pulled back off the lows, but if we zoom out to the weekly chart, you can see we hit this. We've been bouncing along this. Let me just shrink all the crap down these oscillators. We don't need to see these right now. We've been bouncing along these lows here on the weekly chart. You can see, I mean, these lows go all the way back to July of 2024. We've had multiple bounces at this level. So, it was kind of bound to have at least a short-term bounce. We'll see if it's sustained. I mean, in the grand scheme of the weekly chart, this is really nothing great. I mean, we have a major swing high sitting up here. We're a long way from that. So we'll see if there's any follow through. And then there's the Swiss franc. Let's go to the daily. And there's this big daily candle on the Swiss franc. Now, this one was not sitting at any type of like weekly lows or anything. It was had just come off some highs. It was in really a pretty big sustained uptrend here going back quite a ways here. I mean, we've been in an uptrend since 2022. So this was really nothing too unexpected. Although we've had several days of the Swiss franc weakening, but overall, the uptrend probably was pretty much still intact here. We had this last swing low, went to this high, and then we had all this choppiness down. Market tried to rally, came down, okay, and put in what maybe is looking like now a swing low right here, a higher low, and maybe we'll continue the uptrend. So the Swiss franc, overall has maintained its uptrend. It's just that it's been a little bit slow around these levels lately. But anyways, just wanted to point out that this morning, and that's what actually caused my dollar Swiss to get knocked out. And at the same time, looking at the DXY, which is the dollar index, down. So not a good thing for my US dollar Swiss trade, which like I said, I got stopped out of that. So because we had a strengthening Swiss and a weakening dollar, exactly the opposite of what I wanted. But hey, like I said, you're taking signals off these things. It is entirely possible that you will and will take losses, and so that's that. Um, so I did not take any trades in futures today. I just like I said, I didn't have time. I haven't even looked at the currency. I mean, at the grains. Looks like wheat's having a down day. I'm not going to really get into this now. It looks like that swing low that we talked about, lower low, swing high here, or lower high that we talked about yesterday in soybean meal. This is that arrow I drew in yesterday. That so far is playing out. So if we come down here and break this support level, that probably will turn at least soybean meal to the downside. But the rest of these are just kind of either neutral on the day or still going higher in the case of soybean oil, and cattle is pretty much flat on the day. Soybeans pretty much flat on the day. Corn had this gap higher, but is essentially you know topped out here, but we did gap higher on corn, but then it stalled out. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. We'll go back over to currencies, to Forex. And here's some of these other pairs here. So I'm not going to spend any real time on these. I'm mostly just looking at the price chart right now, and I'm on the daily. This is the Aussie yen. There's the Kiwi yen, Euro yen. So pretty much across the board, Swiss yen. Now, even though I told you the Swiss strengthened as well, the yen strengthened more. So the pair still went down, even though the Swiss caught some. Now, the dollar yen has gone down more because we also had weakening in the dollar as well. So on the daily candle here, we went all the way down 482 pips on this daily candle. Now we've pulled back and we're at about 391 on the dollar yen, but a huge fall on the dollar yen today. I mean, this is like, the equivalent of about 3 or 4 normal days in the yen in terms of movement. And if we look at some of these other ones, they're not going to be as bold because they're not, it's not the US dollar. Aussie yen went down 320. It's now pulled back to about 200. So still quite a bit, but not as enhanced as the dollar yen because the dollar got hit really hard too. There's the dollar Swiss. Okay, again, I went long on this daily signal yesterday. You can see up at the top here we have the divergence on the indicator, with the dollar in the orange and the Swiss franc the blue, kind of bending away from each other. And so I took that long based on that. That obviously did not work out. Now, I will say that, who knows ultimately if this turns and goes back up, but this is looking pretty bearish right now. We had this push down, and then we had this lower high put in, and then this big bearish daily candle forming. So, it's just, it's probably not going to work out. Now, interestingly, if we go to the weekly chart shows this still being in a bear market. And if we go to the 4-hour, the 4-hour had called this bullish signal here, but you can see, on the 4-hour, it went up to here and then it fell. And then of course, here's our crossover now to the downside. And I'm not going to touch this today because the market's just too hot. So I'm not taking any trades based on this because we're probably going to see, at least some sort of a short-term corrective move up here after all this selling. So believe me, I'm not touching any of these pairs today. Other than the GBP USD, I'm in long, and considering what time it is, I don't foresee me taking any other trades today. But so that's that. And what did I say? It's a Euro SEK. We went long yesterday. Let's go back to the daily. Actually, that was off the 4-hour, I believe, right? No, that was the daily. So yeah, there's the daily on this. We went long. Obviously, we were, about 2 days late on that, but I figured, still pretty safe. Now, again, ultimately, this might turn and go back up. There's just a lot of volatility, and eventually this uptrend will continue, and this will just be a downtrend daily candle, and we'll go back up, right? I mean, nothing's really changed in this little move right here, right? We're still putting in higher highs and higher lows, and nothing's really changed. It's just, from the standpoint of one day, this is the one that stopped me out, where we saw this big wick down here, knocked me out right here. And then it did try to recover, and now we're back to being down again, but we're still not back to the lows from earlier in the session. So that's just the way it is. And then the Aussie US dollar, again, with the dollar weakening, that's, we got in that trade yesterday. And it started going down. It was actually all three of those trades were in profit last night during the Asian session, but they very quickly turned around. We got into this yesterday around here. I think it was somewhere in here, and we did get into a little profit. We had broke support last night. No, actually, yesterday afternoon, we actually did break support for a little while. So, and then during the Asian session, it was just kind of chopping around, not doing much. This is the 4-hour. And then, of course, that we had the Eurozone news and all that. And then that caused this thing to rally back. So So the fundamentals in the news do play a part in this stuff. I mean, there's just no way around it. I don't talk a lot about it, not because I don't look at it ever. It's just because it's a very complicated subject, and you don't really need to know all the macroeconomic stuff because a lot of it is priced in, quite frankly. But you know, the market is unpredictable, and it's just the way it goes sometimes. Um, anyways, not a good day in that on that front, but we'll pick it up and just keep moving on. It doesn't invalidate anything in terms of the methodology. You know, everybody suffers. Um, everybody suffers losses. Sorry, I was just looking at my phone. Okay. So, just from a standpoint of market action, so let's just go back to the daily and we'll take a quick click through on some of these and we'll do this together. So, again, this is just off the daily. I'm not looking at the 4 hour right now, just given how volatile things were today. Um, you know, so obviously Canadian Swiss, nothing going there. And all I'm doing is kind of looking at the indicator up here. Nothing there. Euro dollar, let's see. Euro dollar, even with the dollar weakening and the euro, there's still really nothing impressive about that at all. Um, Nothing on dollar CAD, nothing on euro CAD, euro Aussie. It looks like it wants to continue the downturn. We still have this major low. And, I was in a trade here. I told you I closed it. I squeezed a lot out of this, but probably could have held that because I still think ultimately it will get back to these lows. It just may take a few more days. Pound Aussie, kind of on a watch list with these two things squeezing together. But again, I'd be a little bit hard pressed to take another short in here just because if we look on the weekly chart, you can see we're at, basically a weekly support level just about here and then way back here. So this is obviously a level that's being watched and guarded. So I'd be hard pressed to take another short there. So that's why I've been preferring the Euro Aussie. The pound New Zealand, still looks pretty bullish. We've had this pullback. You can see I do have an alert sitting up here. If this thing can kind of recover back here, probably need to move this. I'm going to drop to the 4 hour and see if we can eventually get back there. This could continue to go up. We've just, had a temporary pullback. Euro Kiwi is exactly the same. So we'll see. This one doesn't look as positive, but we do still have a buy signal here. Although, albeit it doesn't look as good. I don't like these when they're kind of like intertwining back and forth here. A lot of times that leads to this is not my favorite type of action here. So there's the GBP USD that I'm in long. Okay, that signal was. Well, I had a good 4 hour signal this morning, which is what I took it off of. But the trade's still valid, but it's just sitting back at the highs again. So I'm not, we'll see. I don't know if I'm going to hold that trade or not. Pound USD, excuse me, Aussie USD, nothing. New Zealand USD is actually shifted back more bearish on the signal, but again, nothing really to do with that. We've already talked about all the yen pairs. And there's the pound Swiss again. Again, on the daily chart, still looking pretty bullish. This might just be a 1 day spike down, and then we'll eventually resume this uptrend. If we look at this on the 4 hour, we did have this bearish crossover here on that Swiss franc strength, but you can see, the bulls are trying to come back in here. So, the daily chart's still pretty bullish. So again, we'll see if this all just turns out to be, just a 1 day flash in the pan, and or if these trends end up being sustained. Dollar Swiss we already talked about. Aussie New Zealand, nothing there. And then back to Euro SEK again, still looking bullish on the daily chart. And Euro NOK is nothing. So overall, not really much here in terms of daily signals. I'm going to take a look through the 4 hour, but again, I'm not going to be likely taking any more trades today. Anyways, just based on this. But I just did want to update and just, again, just remind you that, hey, sometimes there's going to be, news events and things, especially in the currency market, you cannot control. And that's why you have to practice good risk management. I mean, between those three trades, I did lose quite a bit, but it doesn't blow my account out. Those are funded accounts. I didn't come anywhere near breaching them because I don't over leverage and I put reasonable stop losses in. So because stuff like this does happen, sometimes you're just wrong, and then sometimes you get events like that you just cannot predict are going to happen. That was not scheduled news release with the Japanese yen and the Bank of Japan. They just did it, and that's what happens. And the market's going to react to that. And if you're on the wrong side, then oh well. So, and that's what happened. So we'll just pick it up and just move forward. Like I said, I'm going to do a scan through the 4-hour charts and and just continue on, and then we'll see whether these end up being, like I said, some of these moves, like especially in the euro and the pound and the dollar, the Swiss, the yen, especially the Swiss and the yen. Um, and all the cross pairs to see whether this is just basically a 1 day flash in the pan, and then the trends that are indicated by the CSI continue on, or whether there is some sort of actual longer term reversal setting up on some of those, in which case the indicator will eventually catch up with. So um, and we'll go from there. But yeah, so that's that. Like you said, no futures trades. I just did not have time to even look at anything. I ran out of here. I was gone for about 3 hours, and so um, it's been a quiet week for me in futures. So yeah, so that's what we're at now. And just looking back up at the top here, not really much else. So this is a news site that I use. It's called financialjuice.com. I've been using it for many, many years, really since I started trading. I don't look at it a lot much anymore, but I do have it bookmarked. And when I see stuff like what happened and the with the yen and the Swiss this morning, first place I'm going to come to is a site like this to see if there's any news reports, and that's where I saw that the BOJ had intervened in the market last night. So during overnight during the London session, so that's what caused the yen to strengthen. It's pretty much that simple. But this is a great site. You can sign up for a free account. They do have a paid service if you want like real time voice news, which I don't have. I just have the free service. But anyways, it's a good site either way. So just to get financial market news, kind of consolidated into one site, and you can kind of pick your specialty. You can look at more commodity based news, forex based news, stock based news, whatever you want. You can kind of put settings in there so it's going to lean more towards one asset class than others. So, but yeah, so I think we're going to probably leave it there. We'll just take a quick look over on the currency futures. Again, just off the daily chart here, which I mentioned yesterday that I may start doing currency futures just on the daily chart as well, and maybe for grains too. I don't know, but based on that, the euro is at kind of a crossroads. It's definitely on a watch list. We've squeezed together here for the last couple of days. Not really much doing on the Aussie. Again, the New Zealand is definitely keeping an eye on this. We've had some really bullish price action on it today, but overall, it's still pretty neutral. And the market has shown that it's been pretty much, trading sideways here inside of especially the last 2 days. Hasn't really gone anywhere. The British pound definitely has picked up some strength. The indicator really hasn't shown that yet. We'll see at the end of the day. I'm sure we're probably going to see some bending up of the British pound eventually. And the Swiss franc again has strengthened. This one might follow through. I can definitely see the Swiss franc continuing to strengthen. The technicals are still pretty positive. And then this big bullish engulfing candle today is pretty positive. The yen, let's see how long this sustains. Um, But again, we're coming off weekly, very much guarded weekly lows, support zone. So this may follow through as well. So, keep an eye on that. Not much going with the Canadian dollar. That's been pretty much range bound the last basically 5 or 6 sessions. Right here, you can just see, and we got both of these things moving sideways. So that's just kind of confirming we're just up, down, up, down, up, down, really not going anywhere. So, which can be really tough if you're trying to trade it on a longer time frame. And then again, we already talked about grains and where we're at with that. So I didn't trade anything today in here, so um, I don't want to belabor that point. So anyway, so yeah, so just always be aware of the fact. So I guess the lesson for today is risk management, not over leveraging or oversizing your account, because things can come up that you just don't know, could happen when when you start out a particular trade. There are just things you cannot control, and sometimes this is what you're going to get. And but if you practice good risk management, you're not over leveraged, over positioned, you can survive those and just pick it up and move on from there. Understanding that that's going to happen, you can't control what the market does, and no matter how good of a system, quote unquote, you think you have, you're still going to suffer losses, and there are some things you just can't predict, so, and can't control. Certainly, well, you can't predict anything, but you certainly can't control anything either. So control what you can control, which is your risk management and your position sizing, and that's what you can control. You can't control what the market does, but you can control your risk. And I think that's the main lesson and takeaway. So it sucks. I hate seeing that. It takes a big chunk out of what I've gained the last week or so. But hey, that's the way it goes. But I live to trade another day because I don't over leverage. So all right, so I will leave it there, guys. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel on your way out. Any questions or comments, leave them down below, and we'll be back